The Arctic, a realm of silent, unforgiving majesty, a place where the land itself feels like an ancient, watchful entity. And it is here, in the vast, frozen expanse of the Canadian high Arctic, that our story begins. It was November 12th, 1979. The last light of the polar day had long receded, plunging the landscape into perpetual twilight, a deep blue gloom punctuated only by the occasional aurora borealis, a ghostly dance in the heavens. At Outpost Aurora, a remote scientific research station perched precariously on Ellesmere Island, life was routine. For 6 dedicated scientists, routine was survival. Their mission, to study geomagnetism and atmospheric conditions, to listen to the whispers of the planet from one of its most isolated corners. Dr. Anya Sharma, the station's lead climatologist, was in the observation dome, charting the spectral shifts of the sky. Dr. Ben Carter, the geophysicist, was down in the main lab, calibrating seismic sensors. The others, Maintenance Chief Lars Jensen, biologist Clara Bell, and junior researchers Mark and Emily, were scattered throughout the modest complex, engaged in their duties, or perhaps simply trying to stay warm against the 40 degrees Celsius reality outside. The station was a self-contained world, a cluster of interconnected modules, powered by a diesel generator, its radio antenna the only visible link to civilization, thousands of miles away. Every week, on Thursdays at 14 Zulu time, they made contact with the Arctic Research Operations Center in Resolute Bay. It was a lifeline, a simple check-in, a reassurance that they were still there, still alive. November 15th, 1979 was a Thursday. At 14 Zulu, Resolute Bay called. Static. They tried again, an hour later. More static. The radio operator, a seasoned veteran named Grizzled McAllister, wasn't immediately concerned. Solar flares, equipment glitches, the Arctic was notorious for interference. He left a message, a standard procedure, and marked it down for the next day. But Friday came, and then Saturday, and the silence from Outpost Aurora persisted. The scheduled check-ins were missed. All attempts to reach them failed. A cold dread began to settle in McAllister's gut, the kind of cold that had nothing to do with the outside temperature. This was the Arctic, a place where silence often meant something far more permanent than a lost signal. By Monday, November 19th, the alarm bells were ringing loudly. A full-scale search and rescue operation was mobilized, a Herculean task in the high Arctic winter. A Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker, the CCGS Louis S. Saint Laurent, was diverted from its patrol, carrying a small, specialized SAR team. The journey was slow, treacherous. Days blended into nights, the ship battling pack ice and whiteouts. It was November 26th, nearly 2 weeks after the last expected contact, when the Saint Laurent finally broke through the last ice floe and sighted Outpost Aurora. From a distance it looked normal, intact. Lights were on in some of the windows. A faint hum of the generator could be heard. It stood like a silent sentinel against the endless white. But something was wrong, profoundly wrong. There was no smoke from the chimney, no movement, no figures emerging to greet the approaching ship, just the endless, crushing silence of the polar night. The SAR team made their cautious approach. The air itself felt heavy, expectant. The main entrance hatch was unlatched, slightly ajar, rattling faintly in the biting wind. A single snowmobile sat parked outside, keys still in the ignition, a half-empty fuel tank. Inside, the generator hummed steadily, keeping the heating and minimal lighting active. The warmth within contrasted sharply with the glacial dread that began to seep into the team's bones. The station was perfectly preserved, a snapshot in time. In the mess hall, half-eaten meals sat on the tables, bowls of congealed oatmeal, mugs of coffee, still emitting faint wisps of steam from the residual heat. A game of chess was abandoned mid-move. A paperback novel lay open, face down, beside a comfortable chair. In the sleeping quarters, beds were unmade, personal items scattered, a watch on a bedside table, a pair of glasses, a half-finished letter. There were no signs of struggle, no broken windows, no forced entry, no blood, nothing to suggest a violent confrontation. The communication room's radio was on, tuned to the Resolute Bay frequency, static still hissing faintly. A logbook lay open, its last entry dated November 15th, 14 Zulu, simply stating, "Routine check-in missed, attempting troubleshoot." The only anomaly of note was a single large research sled, typically used for long-range expeditions, missing from its hangar, and a single pair of heavy-duty Arctic boots belonging to Dr. Ben Carter, also gone from the mudroom. The 6 scientists, however, were not there. They were simply gone. Vanished. The meticulous search that followed, spanning days, then weeks, yielded nothing. No footprints leading away into the snow beyond a certain distance, quickly obscured by the relentless wind. No discarded equipment, no bodies. The endless white expanse of the Arctic had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only an unnerving tableau of their last moments. The official investigation floundered, as most do when confronted with an absolute void. Theories, of course, abounded. The most popular suggested a sudden, catastrophic whiteout or blizzard. Perhaps they ventured out on the research sled, got disoriented, and succumbed to the elements. But why leave the station unlocked? Why leave meals unfinished? Why no distress call, especially when the radio was operational? Another theory proposed a mass psychological event, a shared psychosis, perhaps brought on by extreme isolation and polar darkness, leading them to wander off into the snow. But 6 people, simultaneously, and all so calmly? A more chilling idea whispered of something else entirely, something unseen, unheard, an ancient force that simply took them. Some spoke of the Wendigo, a malevolent spirit of the north, but those were campfire stories. This was reality, or what was left of it. Outpost Aurora stands to this day, a silent monument to an unsolved disappearance. The generator eventually ran out of fuel, the lights went dark, and the cold claimed the interior once more. The wind howls through its empty corridors, carrying no answers, only the echoes of a profound absence. What happened to the 6 scientists of Outpost Aurora? Why did they leave everything behind? And where did they go, into that vast, indifferent, frozen world? The Arctic. It keeps its secrets well, and sometimes it simply refuses to give them back.